Okay, Rockville Audio wanted me to make this quick video to kind of show what my amp's doing. Now, I've got my dash ripped apart, and like I said, it burnt out a channel on my radio. So I'm going to use a different channel that is still working on the existing radio because it does have damage to the back, and I will pull it out and show you. It does have burn marks on the actual above the RCAs right there. So that's the channels that burnt for the rear. So I'm going to use just one channel that's still working, and all I'm going to hook up is the bass. Okay, it's hooked up. My amp is only turned a quarter turn on each knob, and I'm only going to turn the Rockville bass thing up just a little bit. And I'm going to show you. You say there's nothing wrong with your amp. It's hooked up to my speakers. Rockville's on. Now watch what happens to that speaker when I touch this amp, and just tap it. And it'll eventually just kick off. So, and if you get it to kick off like I just did, I had to turn it off. Now see, it's not playing, it's not me, it's not the radio. Watch. See, as soon as that vibration starts, it just stays. The amp's vibrating, so it's putting a signal to them speakers. See? And the only way I can do it is to kill the radio and turn it off. Now I'm going to show you, if you don't turn the bass up to where it hits, it will play. So what I'll do, here, I'm gonna have my wife help me here. I'm gonna turn the radio back on, and she's gonna hold it right there at the screen just so you can see. It's coming on now. I'm gonna turn the bass control back up just a little bit, just to where you can barely hear it, just so it doesn't cause a vibration. And this will be like Michael Jackson, but it'll be just bass, because I'm not taking a chance on blowing my highs or my other little amp because of this sending juice back to my radio like it already did. I mean, it melted RCA jacks and everything when that happened, and I couldn't get it to shut off. Now, as you can clearly hear, it is playing, and they are hitting. Here, let me have the phone, honey. Can you hold the stereo, please? Thank you. I'll take it back here where you can hear it. It is playing and barely hitting. Now watch. It's playing music, right? As soon as I did it hard enough to cause a vibration. Oh, what happened?
I don't know.
We don't know what happened now, but it turned completely off this time. It's still showing it lit up, but nothing's... Let me try turning it off and back on again. Yeah, see, it kicked the amp out. When it sticks on like that, it kicks the amp out. But they said that's what I sent it back for, and they said it was fixed. I assumed it was fixed. I hooked it back up the right way. I do real good wiring. I use Stinger, connectors. I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm pretty sure I know how to hook up an amp. And like I said, they're dual voice coils. I jumped the positive and negative under the speaker there, and then run them parallel to the amp, since the amp's running parallel. So that way it gives me a 2 ohm load, which that's 2 ohm stable amp. And it apparently sent juice back through the RCAs or something, because of the vibration speakers is just like me hitting it, so therefore it just stuck. As soon as that amp started vibrating, it was like I was repeatedly hitting it, and they just keep sending a signal to the speakers no matter if you turn the radio off or not. So it's just really weird. Once that amp kicks on and it sticks like that, even the remote wire killing it, it stays on. So it's something internally wrong with the amp, because I can actually take this amp out right now, hook up my little cheap sub-ohm amp, and hook it to these, and this thing sounds great. But the reason I bought that DB14 is because I want to hook up this second box down here that has 2 more of those in it, so I could run 4. But I'm glad I only hooked up my 2 right there. I mean, that apparently didn't hurt the 12s, but there's still something majorly wrong with this amp. And we're back to the radio now. Honey, hand me that pair of RCAs off the floor. I had to put a new pair of RCAs on. But since the radio is already junk, I mean, look what it did to these RCAs, everybody. I mean, it smoked them. It melted into the carpet right down here where I had them run. Burnt the other end. I mean, it melted them together. And then if you look at the back of the stereo here, all right, I'm gonna unplug it. But it melted clear up to here because I've only got one sub out, so I had to split it, which is fine. And if you look, it melted the wrapped wire all the way around these. I'm going to disconnect this and pull these out. But look, you can see the gel right there where it's turned brown and rolled. That's where it got hot, and that's where it burnt the channel out on the amp. I'm going to eject the CD because I don't, like I said, I don't know how much longer this radio is going to work. But it burnt the rear channel out that I had running back there. I didn't run the sub out because I like some music to come through my subs. I don't like it just a boom boom. But now that we got the CD out, I'll unplug it. Maybe. Turn it on. Sorry, everybody. We're trying to hold a phone. Okay. Now, if you look, now I wiped some of it off, but you can see the burn marks right there where the RCAs were laying, and it pulled up and it turned brown, but it just burned it. I mean, it burned it bad. But it won't put nothing out the other two RCAs now. And I just bought this stereo and just put it in because it's got the navigation and everything. So, but I mean, I wired it right. You know, I just plugged in and then ran my, that's my speaker wire down to my amp for my highs. And I capped them. I cap every loose wire I have that's not running to anything, so that way I don't have a short or anything like that. So nothing was touching. It's all from that amp because, like I said, with no stereo hooked up, we can plug it back in. But I mean, I've already made the point, but you shouldn't be able to hit an amp and it send a signal to the bass speakers. I'm using monster cable, Stinger connectors. The only really cheap thing I used was that splitter on that sub out. But like I said, that's not going to cause the problem I had. Because like I said, I noticed it when I sent it back the first time that that's what it was doing. And thank God I caught it in time. This time thinking it was okay, I went ahead and just put it in. And lo and behold, it stuck on. The right behind the radio started smoking. So I hurried up and popped the thing off the dash, pulled the battery cable. It was still smoking. I don't know if it was because the amp was stuck on and the power wire was hooked up and it was grounded so good. But I mean, I've actually got 3 grounds, one from the frame to the body, one from the body up to the grounding harness, and then I redid the grounding at the battery onto the motor and the chassis. And then back at my amp, I used 4/0 gauge, basically battery cable, and ran to the body, one to the body, and then one to the frame of the truck, and then joined them together, and then made a little short one right at a grounding stud that the factory put in, and it's a 1/2-inch bolt. And it takes a very big Stinger connector on the end of that. So, I mean, there's no reason this should have happened. Like I said, there's my little kicker amp that runs my highs. There's my highs I use up there. I mean, everything I buy at least decent stuff. I don't try to go the cheapest route. But everybody told me these Rockville amps were pretty good. But this is my first one. I bought my sub-ohm speakers from you guys, and my sub-ohm amp and my dual 2 voice coils here off you guys, and I'm happy with the speakers. They sound good on my cheap amp, but the amp I got from you guys, I'm very disappointed. Now I've got melted carpet, down here in my truck. I've got parts up here in the dash that are melted. Now I've got to rip all this wiring back out and redo it again. But yet, they said they were going to see what they can do. So Rockville, this is pretty bad. And I mean, I've showed you can tap your amp and it goes through the speakers. No, nothing should do that. It's not a grounding issue. Every time I call, it's a grounding issue when something's wrong. Well, now that something's wrong, hopefully you guys will be able to help me out. So, I'm out wiring, I'm out of stereo, and now I'm out my amp that I just paid for. And plus it cost me $30 to send it back to you guys to not fix. I'm totally flabbergasted. Now I'm sitting here with a ripped out dash and having to do all this weekend and just put my cheap amp back in and my little cheap CD player back in for now until we get this resolved. But I'm very disappointed. I probably should have went kicker, because I buy kicker stuff all the time. I usually buy kicker speakers, which, as you can see, I got 1, 2, and then 2 more down there, because I want to run 4 off of this amp eventually. But I think I'm going to go a little bit bigger than the DB14, because the DB14 has a problem apparently just running 212s. So hopefully this video was more informative. I'll kind of do a quick walk around and show you what I use for grounding and everything. And I'm sending multiple pictures to show everything that I hooked up. As you can see, everything was hooked up right. I'm going to walk back here to the amp. As you can see, I do clean wiring, big heavy gauge wire, big heavy gauge speaker wire. Everything's in, no frayed wires sticking out or touching. This is the wiring side of the amp. I'm gonna turn it because I haven't messed with it since you guys heard it do that. I am gonna unplug the RCAs just so I can flip it over to me. I had to do that. Now, if you look, all those knobs are barely up. I mean, barely off the dot. I turned them a quarter turn just to show you guys. Because if I would have turned them up where I usually have them set to hit, this thing would have stuck on and it would have smoked the wires again. I didn't want to put that much juice to it and I had to, cause a truck fire. And I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, you think it was loud right then when I had it turned up and did this? Oh my God, you couldn't stand to be in the vehicle and I'm trying to rip wires out. It just got cherry red really quick. But my grounding points that I use underneath the seat here, I don't know if there's one on this side, there's not, but I'll walk out and show you my monster cable on the battery. Right there with the stinger connectors, monster cable done the right way. I did the upgraded wiring on the alternator down, heavier gauge, heavier grounds, which I sent a picture of that the night I was putting it in, and then I hid the wires after I got them put in. Extra ground straps from the firewall down the motor, from the hood down. Those are just extra I put in for my headlights and whatnot. Now, the ground that I use, I have 2 or 3 of them laying here, so this is just for purpose to show you. This is heavy gauge, as big as my finger, with big old ends on it, and this is what I ran from the truck frame up to the chassis, and then up to these big bolts that run right here under the seat. See if I can get you a picture of it here. See that big bolt there? And it's all clean, pretty shiny nut under there, and no paint, no nothing. But in the middle, I've got 3 of these wires coming from the frame, chassis, and then 1 down from the amp to there. All bolted on the same bolt, perfectly spick and span clean, so it's no grounding issue. This thing's grounded, better than any vehicle I've ever done. So as far as it being that, I mean, this is just crazy. So hopefully this is enough info for you.